is your no bullshit guide to a happier life. Quick, but not necessarily easy tips to help you to squeeze every last drop of enjoyment out of your business and your life. My name is Helen Calvert. I'm a coach, a business owner and a parent, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I do swear occasionally, as the title suggests, so pop in your headphones if I'm not safe for little ears. Ready to go? Let's do this. Do you wish that you had a place where all of the nuggets of wisdom from this podcast were saved and easy to access? Somewhere you could access me and ask me questions and spend time with me without committing to coaching one-to-one. Somewhere that inspires you, gives you confidence, improves your emotional safety, and makes you feel as though you belong. Somewhere you can find the answers. I've got you. The Happier Life Hub is now open and it is ready for you to join. The Hub is a connected, supportive community available no matter where you are in the world. It is constantly updated with video, written and audio content that is organised in themes so you can find the answers to how you are feeling today. You don't have to be sociable, but you can be. You can dip in and out or be in there every day. You will find life coaching first aid you can access in the moment and more in-depth resources for when you are ready to learn and grow. Come on a journey of self-discovery that will threaten the mediocrity. The world is set up in a way that is unhelpful to most people. We constantly receive messaging that keeps us small and helpful to the system. As a result, we are exhausted, stressed, and burned out. The Happier Life Hub will help you to find out as much as you can about who you are, how you truly thrive, then find ways to live that support that and make you more helpful to yourself. As an individual, you will feel fulfilled and content. As a collective, we can create our own system and live harmoniously. And you can have all of this for the early bird price of just £12 a month. Sign up before the 1st of June 2025 and you will get the early bird price for a full 12 months. Head to happier-life.co.uk/hub or sign up via the link in the show notes for this episode. The Happier Life Hub, the place where you find the answers to banishing the bullshit and living a happier life. Hello and welcome to this episode where we are going to be talking about RSD, Rejection Sensitivity Dysphoria. And it's hilarious really that I'm recording this because I worry about RSD every time I put any content out into the world because it's all about worrying about being rejected, feeling very strongly about being rejected and perceiving rejection all over the place. So this is something that is incredibly common to those of us who are neurodivergent. It may be something people experience if they're not ND. I'm actually not sure. But what it is, it's where we find rejection hard. Now, obviously, nobody enjoys being rejected. So it's not as though there's anyone in the world who thinks rejection, fantastic. But RSD is different from simply feeling unhappy about rejection. There's a couple of aspects to it. One is how we experience that feeling. So for me, it's a physical experience. I don't know whether there are people who have actual pain alongside it, but I certainly experience physical discomfort alongside it. Feelings in my throat, feelings in my stomach, raised heart rate, sometimes flushing, sometimes feeling hot, and it can really take over my whole day depending on what's happened. It's not something I can brush aside or talk myself out of, even though I'm fully aware of what it is. The other problem with it is that, okay, so we find rejection particularly difficult, physically difficult, very challenging. those of us with RSD also perceive rejection all over the place. So we expect rejection. Now, there's probably a whole other discussion to be had about how much of this is to do with our brain types. And when I say brain types, these are neurologically different brains. This is not just a feeling. If you look at my brain, it is different from a neurotypical person's. So how much of this is to do with that? And how much of it is to do with the fact that as neurodivergent people, we often are rejected and we often are misunderstood, and people's energy often is off with us. So it's a real tangle of things. There was an experience I had just the other day where I emailed someone who usually responds to me with lots of enthusiasm, and they just came back and went, yeah, that's great, thumbs up, whatever. Now I know for a fact this person is just busy or has a lot going on or has their own shit happening. But there's that bit in my brain that's like, I feel like I've been punched in the gut. What have I done wrong? Immediately, what have I done wrong and how can I fix it? And it will stay with me. It's whittling at me, even though it's the tiniest thing. It doesn't matter, and it's actually not about me. But that's the logic. That's not the feeling. So RSD. Now, I have done a video about how it is experienced on the No Bullshit Blend YouTube channel that I share with Carol Nesbitt. I'll try and remember to put a link to that in the show notes for this episode. But there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about today specific to this, because it's linked to my experience of autistic burnout. So last year, I tried to do more in the, I guess we call it, diversity and inclusion space. I was determined that my lineup of speakers for my Happier Life Live events would be diverse and show a really diverse range of lived experiences. That's just something that I believe in, and it was important. It meant that I ended up having some amazing conversations with and meeting some fabulous people who do loads of work in that space. And I'm very grateful that I did. However, it is a tricky space to navigate. I am queer. I am neurodivergent. I'm a cis white woman. But to feel like I belonged in that space was incredibly challenging. The rules, because of course I'm autistic, so I'm desperately looking for the rules. The rules were confusing. They were not clear. They were different depending on who you spoke to. I got things wrong. I broke the rules. I didn't realize I'd broken the rules. I got told off for breaking the rules. It was hard, and I don't mind that it was hard because it's important and I was choosing to do the work. What I don't think I appreciated was the level of RSD that was building up, and eventually it tipped me over into burnout. It was a real, really important aspect of me dipping into burnout. And also the political landscape, because I refused to join a political gang, because that's what we have these days, isn't it? It's gang warfare politics. I refused to join a political gang because I have loved ones in all camps, all gangs, all variations. And because I refuse to do that, I also get RSD because, of course, it's much easier, isn't it, to belong? You want to belong in a gang and then you know who your friends are and what you're doing. And I don't do that with politics because that's not my values. But it makes it harder. And the landscape we're in at the moment, I think a lot of people are feeling these things. Now, I realised this has happened to me numerous times in my life. It's why I've given up every class or hobby I've ever started. It's why I've moved on from numerous friendship groups. It's because the bag, I call it the big bag of RSD, the big bag of RSD just gets too big. I'll explain what I mean. So if something happens that is demonstrably unpleasant and unfair, that I can pretty much deal with. If someone came up to me and said, Helen, you're such a bitch. Well, I can deal with that. Am I? Okay. I can deal with actual conflict. Not too bad at that. But it's not those things. It's the things where, like I say, someone was a bit funny in an email or a bit funny on a text message, or you got left out of something and there was kind of a logical reason, but it still made you feel a bit off, or people didn't really respond the way you hoped they would to something, or all those little things that you can't address because nobody's actually done anything wrong. And also, it's not everybody's responsibility to make me feel comfortable 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week. So you can't really address it unless it's with people who are really your safe people. So it just kind of builds. And it builds and builds and builds, often over years. And then suddenly it's too much. And there's too much RSD. And it feels like that's where you get that feeling that at any moment, everyone's going to turn against you. The avalanche is going to come down the mountain and you're going to get buried in everyone's contempt for you and mockery of you. And it's, most of it is in your head. Some of it may well be real. The problem we have as neurodivergent people is we're also very, very perceptive. So it's kind of hard to know what's real and what isn't. But that bag just gets too big, and it gets to the point where I say, right, I'm not doing this anymore. And people don't understand, because as far as they're concerned, you've had a lovely time at the riding stables or a ballet class or doing whatever, or being friends with so-and-so. Oh, I thought you got on well. And suddenly it's, nope, I can't do it anymore. There's been too many tiny instances. The bag is too heavy. I have to run away, empty out the bag and start again somewhere else. But then when you start again somewhere else, you start building another bag. This is now something that I need to work on, how to not, if it's possible, build up that bag. Because apart from anything else, I have a life now that I don't want to run away from. I really don't want to have to run away from it. But figuring out how to keep that RSD under control and not let it lead to more burnout or more desires to just run away and hide in a cave is going to be an interesting journey. So if you have experienced this and if you have come up with some solutions, I would absolutely love to hear from you. I think it's also another reason, I've been pondering this, I think it's also another reason that I try to control conversations, by which I mean I want to respond quickly if someone has misunderstood me. If someone has misunderstood me, I cannot leave that unresponded to. But as we've discussed previously, communication is also heavy for me and leads to burnout. So it's a real balancing act between wanting to be in control so that I don't get misunderstood and don't get rejected, which is a bit of a roller coaster in and of itself, because you actually can't control those things. Balancing that with my need to be able to communicate when I'm ready. So I'm saying all this because I suspect this is going to resonate with a lot of people, as I know my episodes up to now have done. And I just want you to know that you're not alone, really, is number one. You're not alone, and this is really hard stuff. But it's important to understand that not only is it difficult, it's also something that really can contribute to us getting neurodivergent burnout. And it is something that is so painful and so often seemingly or actually illogical that it kind of compounds itself. Because if I went to a friend and said, oh, so-and-so did this and it's left me feeling really rejected, if they then say, don't be silly, they didn't mean anything by it, don't be daft, you're reading too much into it, that's a second rejection. So then I've got two rejections. So then I go to someone else and say, I'm feeling really bad because these people aren't really hearing me and understanding what I'm feeling. Oh, well, they're just going through something. It's not really about you. Don't worry, they didn't mean it. And on until you find that person who can hold space for how you're feeling. And those are very, very special people. And as I say, it's nobody else's responsibility. My boyfriend, yes, we look after each other. We're in a committed relationship. We do feel in some ways responsible for each other's emotions, although obviously we're mainly responsible for our own, and a couple of very close friends. But other than that, people are not responsible for my emotions or my emotional well-being or how I view things they've said. So I can't make it other people's problem. And yet it's a real thing that is a big problem for me and can totally disrupt my day, my week. I know that it passes in the end, in the sense that I don't always remember these things. But as I say, it kind of gets compounded and the bag gets bigger and bigger until I can feel it in myself, that desire to just withdraw from certain places, spaces, and groups of people, which is really challenging because, as I say, those people probably haven't really done anything wrong. So there we go, RSD and how it can link to burnout. It's all kind of bound up, isn't it, in this communication thing as well? You know, all of these things are linked. I would love to hear from you if this is something that you have been struggling with. If you found solutions, if you haven't found solutions, all of the ways you can get in touch with me are in the show notes. And I think this is really where my injunction to be excessively kind to ourselves really comes into its own. Because if this is something you experience, the most important thing is for you to be excessively kind to yourself and find yourself that emotional safety, because that's the only way we're going to be able to squeeze every last drop of enjoyment out of life. Speak to you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to find out how to work with me or how to get your hands on a copy of my book, you can find all of those links in the info for this episode. My huge thanks to Stephanie Ward of the Spicy Brain Collective for sponsoring the whole of this season of the No Bullshit Guide to a Happier Life. You can also find out more about Steph's collective for neurodivergent business owners via the links in the episode info. See you next time.